Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Troilus and Cressida, and we get to hear from Troilus today in Act 4, Scene 4. But yesterday we just finished Act 4, Scene 1, so what? But the things that are going on, Ajax has a very inflated ego. He's ready to go fight Hector. Achilles' ego is maybe a little bit bruised. I'm not going to say deflated, but he thinks that the way to win his fellow cohorts back is to invite Hector over to dinner. And the Greeks, or Cressida's father, Calchas, wants to do a trade of Cressida for a Trojan soldier that was captured by the Greeks named Antenor. So all of that is going on. Diomedes had gone to make this trade. In yesterday's monologue, or in Act 4, Scene 1, he was actually there and said, we need to make this trade, let's make that all happen. And as they went to get Cressida, he was talking to Paris on the side, and Paris is like, which one of us deserves to have Helen? And Diomedes made it very clear that he thinks that this whole war is silly and stupid and should have ended a long time ago because Helen's not worth it. At the top of Act 4, Scene 2, we have like the morning after scene with Troilus and Cressida. It's similar to the one between Romeo and Juliet. There's definite similarities in it, including like, oh, is that the lark type conversation, but it's nowhere near as poetic as Romeo and Juliet. And Cressida, in their back and forth of, oh, you should stay, oh, I should go, it's not morning yet, blah, 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 all of that. Cressida almost goes so far, well, she actually does go so far to say, like, maybe if we hadn't done this, then you would stay, hearkening back to her thinking that once Troilus has her, he won't want her anymore. But they don't really get to continue with that line of thinking because Pandarus comes in and he's like, hey, did you kids do it? And then teases them for a little while longer until there's a knock at the door, at which point Troilus and Cressida leave and Pandarus goes to answer the door, and it's Aeneas, and he's looking for Troilus to tell Troilus about this trade for Cressida. Now, from the very modern perspective, I think it's interesting that he doesn't go to tell Cressida. He goes to tell Troilus, and there is this sort of comic moment of like, I'm here to find Troilus. And they're like, why would you be here to find Troilus? And Aeneas is like, no, seriously, everybody knows that Troilus is here. But anyway, he says that there's this whole trade thing happening. Troilus comes back in and hears that there's this whole trade thing happening, and he's like, but he's going to go talk to the Greeks and see if he can get around it. So Aeneas and Troilus go to talk to the Greeks, and Pandarus is like, this is a really bad situation. And Cressida comes back into the room and she's like, what's going on? And Pandarus has to tell her that she's being traded for this Trojan prisoner, and she's like, No, I'm not going to the Greeks. I'm not leaving Troilus. And basically that's the end of Act 4, Scene 2. So then Act 4, Scene 3 is really, really short. And it's Paris and Troilus and Aeneas and Antenor and Diomedes and some other people in front of Pandarus' house. And Paris is like, okay, it's just about time to go get her. And Troilus is like, yeah, I will. And when I bring her out, it'll be like laying her on an altar as a sacrifice. Like, he doesn't fight to keep her. He doesn't fight to change anybody's mind, or at least if he did that, we don't get to see it. So it just feels a little bit weird, considering earlier in the play how hard he fought to hang on to Helen, who was not his, who wasn't even Trojan, but he was fighting so hard to keep Helen, and now he's just slept with Cressida and he's like, yeah, I guess it's time to turn her over. It's just a very, the fickleness of Shakespeare's romantic leads. But anyway, he goes to get Cressida, and Paris is like, oh, I know what it's like to be in love. So sad for him. And that's the end of Act 4, Scene 3. So now, Act 4, Scene 4, where we're going to get to hear from Troilus. We start out with Pandarus trying to calm Cressida down, but of course she's not going to calm down because she's being traded for another prisoner, which also means that she has to leave Troilus. And she's focused mostly on I'm going to have to leave Troilus. But Troilus comes back in and he starts to launch into like what a bad situation this is and how sad it is because it's a punishment for Troilus from the gods because he loves Cressida too much. So nice way to be, selfish and a little self-centered there. But if you want to frame it as romantic, I guess people have different interpretations of that. But there's a little bit of back and forth where she's like, really, I have to go? And he's like, yeah, you do. And she's like, seriously, I have to go? And he's like, yeah, you do. And she's like, really? I have to go to the Greeks? It's a done deal? And Troilus says, and suddenly, where injury of chance puts back leave-taking, jostles roughly by, all time of pause, rudely beguiles our lips of all rejoinder, forcibly prevents our locked embrasures, strangles our dear vows, even in the birth of our own laboring breath. We two, that with so many thousand sighs did buy each other, must poorly sell ourselves, with the rude brevity and discharge of our injurious time. Now with a robber's haste crams his rich thievery up, he knows not how. As many farewells as be stars in heaven, with distinct breath and consigned kisses to them, he fumbles up into a loose adieu, and scants us with a single famished kiss, distasting with the salt of broken tears. So he's being poetic about it. I'll say that. I'll give him credit for that. He's being poetic about it. But what he's saying is, yes, you have to go, and you have to go now. So we don't even really get to say goodbye to each other or give any sort of proper goodbye. We don't get to, we don't get to do that again. We definitely don't get to do that again. We barely even get to hug. The two of us who are now so bonded have to say goodbye like within the next hour. So I would give you as many farewells as there are stars in the sky, but we have to boil all of it down to adieu and one kiss, and you're gone. And Aeneas then knocks on the door, the king of great timing. Aeneas knocks on the door and says, "Is she ready to go?" And that's as good a place as any to stop for today. There's more coming. They're not, as much as he has just said that their farewell has to be brief, it's not. It continues for the rest of the scene, and we're going to get to hear a little bit more of the farewell tomorrow. So I'll see you then for that. Mwah.